everyone, welcome back to another video here on Critic Insider, and today's video is my spoiler-free review of Wonder Woman 1984. Yes, that's right, you guys. I know I am about a week late on this. I saw this last Saturday on the 26th, and just didn't have the time to review it yet, but I'm finally giving out a review for you. So yeah, so this would be completely spoiler-free, by the way, like most of my other reviews are. So yeah, so anyways, let's just get right to the video. First of all, let's talk about the good. Now, the first good thing about this movie is the final act. Yes, that's right, you guys. This movie honestly might one of the best last 30 minutes of pretty much possibly any super comic book movie I've ever seen. I mean, there were some big moments that happened in this, some very exciting moments, and it all came to a satisfying ending. I won't spoil anything, but it still came to a satisfying ending. And every single time there's action on scene, it was fantastic. Cheetah was a great villain. Although I feel like we could have seen a bit more of Barbara Wig as Cheetah. But we'll get more into that stuff once I get to the things I disliked about this movie. And the opening scene was incredible. The young Diana Prince scene was just incredible. Seeing it on a big IMAX screen was just amazing. And yeah, so overall, when there was action, when Wonder Woman was being Wonder Woman, it was fantastic. Also, there was a scene very early on where she was saving some people in a mall, which wasn't like a huge action scene or nothing, but it was still very cool. Also, all the retro 1984 stuff was really, really cool to see in this film, I thought, personally, because it really made it seem like it was an 80s superhero movie. There were a couple of scenes, especially at the beginning, where I was like, whoa, this seems like it would be from the 80s, and that was very cool. So, it also had a very different vibe from the first film, which, despite I really like the first film's dark, gritty, World War I vibe. I mean, it wasn't like super dark, the first one, but it did definitely have a darker tone than the second one. And honestly, I like both tones for sure. The first ones. The first one's, like I said, darker, World War I tone was great. I also really like this one's more, it felt more like a Marvel movie than most DCEU films do as well. So, and this one a happier vibe, and I like that aspect about too. So, it's very cool how Barbara Jenkins could put this film in two different timelines, and both were very different, but still very cool to see them in different places, different tones, different vibes, different timelines. And I hear that the third one was set in modern day, which is very interesting. So yeah, I'm excited to see that. And now let's get on to some things I didn't like about it. Now, first, big dislike about this movie that's probably the first thing most will come to mind is the big lack of action. Yes, that's right, you guys. Now, in my positives, I mostly said when the action was on screen, it was fantastic, which it was, but when there was a big gap of no action in this movie. This shouldn't have been 2.5 hours. This is one of those movies that was too long. I mean, I feel like I say that about every single super long movie. And it's not because I don't have a bad attention span with movies or nothing. It's just that typically with long movies, I find there to be some important things. I mostly love in-games 3-hour length. I personally rather fine with 2 hours and 40 minutes of in-game because there are some unneeded parts in it, and It Chapter 2, that definitely should have been almost 3 hours, and this one probably had much more unneeded stuff than both of those actually, because when there's a big gap of no action in this movie, which I was looking for a Wonder Woman film, and unfortunately, a lot of this film didn't feel like that. It felt like a rom-com. Not that much of a rom-com, but definitely more of a romance movie, than a superhero movie. Like, come on, I'm not here to see Wonder Woman flying, fighting bad guys, big scenes, which there's some of that towards the end, but the majority of this movie, or a lot of this movie at least, was just unneeded stuff. The humor was sort of meh, and overall, just needed way less romance in this movie, and, I get it, Wonder Woman and Steve Trevor is a love story, but the first one had a little bit of romance, it worked great, but this movie could have done what the first film would have done, but set in a different timeline, but no, way more of this movie was romance than action, for sure, and yeah, which sucks to say that, but it's the truth, and also, Max Lord, was a pretty generic villain. Like, he didn't do much, he wasn't epic, he was just sort of there. He's just sort of a boring villain to watch. I mean, his arc in this movie did come to a pretty satisfying conclusion. I'm not going to spoil that. If you've seen this movie, you probably know what I'm talking about. But for the most part, he didn't do much. He was just a boring villain. And I said Cheetah was cool when she was on screen, but we definitely got a lack of her. Barbara Wig herself, there's way too much of her not as Cheetah in this movie, and Barbara Wig is sort of a boring character. I mean, there are a lot of moments with her and Diana we definitely didn't need, and we should have gotten more Cheetah fight scenes. We were only had 2 moments of actual Cheetah in this movie, and they were both pretty short. So yeah. So anyways, overall, I give Wonder Woman 1984 a B- rating. It definitely wasn't as good as the first one. Had its flaws, but did have its really good things for sure. I mean, the highs of this movie were actually pretty high, if I'm gonna be honest with you. But the lows were fairly low, and overall, I still would recommend checking this one out for sure. Just keep in mind that it's definitely going to be slower and very different than most of your comic book movies. So definitely have some expectations for this one before watching it. But people were way too hard on this film. Like, people these days need to chill out with being hard on the comic book movies. I mean, was this a perfect movie? No. Was it a masterpiece? No. Did it have its flaws? Yes. But it wasn't a bad movie at all by any means. I mean, the romance stuff was sort of a big flaw for this one, but people are like, this is the worst DCU ever. Patty Jenkins is a bad director now. No. This movie did have its flaws though, and people are calling it out to be a bad movie. It's bad movie because they expected more from a comic book movie. I mean, you can more call this movie a little disappointing than bad. And I'm not saying that to be overly positive about this movie or nothing. I seriously didn't find it to be bad, and I don't get the point of all the apologizing to Brie Larson stuff on Captain Marvel. Same thing with Captain Marvel as well. This and Captain Marvel both did have its flaws for sure, but they were still both pretty good movies and still worth checking out. And no, like I said a second ago, this isn't just to be positive. If it's bad, I'm going to admit in this review it's bad. But this isn't a Wonder Woman 1984 was overall, I'd still call it good, but not amazing or nothing like that. And you should definitely keep your expectations going into this movie. Think it's gonna be a bit slower and not nearly as good as the first one. So yeah, so thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe and see ya.